In the heart of a sprawling, crime ridden city, there lived a man that sent shivers down the spine of even the most hardened criminals. Jungkook. He was a formidable figure, the fierce Mafia lord who commanded the underworld with an iron fist. His name was synonymous with power and dread, and his authority was undisputed. In stark contrast to the darkness that engulfed his world, there was Vine, his wife. She was a beacon of light, radiating pure, unadulterated kindness wherever she went. Her courage was not one born of violence, but rather a resolve to do good in the world. She was known for her unwavering politeness and her dedication to helping those in need. In the midst of the chaos and cruelty that surrounded her, Vine's heart remained untamed. Their marriage had been arranged by their parents, a union forged in the fires of necessity rather than love. Jungkook and Vine, over time, developed a deep respect for one another, yet they were never quite sure if their feelings extended beyond that respect. One evening, as the city's neon lights flickered to life and the chaos of the underworld began to stir, Jungkook found himself in their lavish penthouse, surrounded by the opulence that came with his position. His mind, however, was far from the matters of the underworld. He couldn't help but be captivated by Vine, who was in the adjacent room, lost in her own thoughts. She had always been the light that brought solace to his dark world. Her gentleness was a stark contrast to the ruthless life he led, and Jungkook couldn't help but be drawn to her kindness. He loved her deeply, though he had never dared to confess his feelings. As he watched Vine from a distance, he noticed something that sent a chilling shiver down his spine. She was sitting on the edge of their bed, her face hidden in her hands. Uncharacteristic tears glistened in her eyes, and it was clear that she was in pain. Jungkook's heart clenched, and in that moment, nothing else mattered but her well being. Quietly, he entered the room and took a seat beside her. Fine, he said softly, his voice a stark contrast to his usual commanding tone. What's wrong? Why are you hurting yourself? Vine looked up. Surprise and pain etched across her face. She hadn't expected Jungkook to be home at this hour, let alone notice her anguish. She tried to brush her tears away, but they continued to stream down her cheeks. Jungkook, it's nothing. Just a terrible nightmare that's been haunting me. Jungkook's eyes bore into hers, his concern evident. Vine, I do need to worry. You are my wife, and I love you. Tell me about the nightmare, please. Tears continued to fall from Vine's eyes as she found herself unable to resist his genuine concern. Jungkook, it's a recurring nightmare of my past. I relive the moment my parents were brutally killed, and I couldn't save them. I am haunted by the feeling of helplessness. and it's tearing me apart. Jungkook's anger melted away as he realized the source of her pain. He took her trembling hands in his and brought them to his lips, kissing them gently. Jungkook, you lived that moment again and again till today, and I didn't even know about it. Who did that to your parents? Why did you never tell me? Fine, I don't know myself. I remember watching his face clearly, but I don't know anything about him. And the reason killed them. Her tears flowed down till her neck. Jungkook saw this and felt burning sensations in his heart looking at her. He wiped her tears softly and immediately side hugged her, making her rest in his embrace as he said, Fine, I'm so sorry you had to endure such a traumatic experience. You're not helpless, and you have overcome so much. You're strong and brave. I know, Vine whispered, leaning into his touch, but it still hurts. Jungkook pulled her into his arms, holding her tightly. I understand, Vine. I can't take away the pain, but I can be here with you. Lean on me, and together we will find a way to heal. She hugged him back and felt the warmth that he tried hard to provide her. She was still crying, for he noticed it and said, I will have a sketch maker here tomorrow. You can tell him about that person, and I will avenge your parents. Jungkook, I'm not letting him go after making your precious eyes to flow tears. Fine. Will you really be able to capture him? She broke the hug and looked into his eyes with hope as she said that. Jungkook hugged her again and said, What do you take me for? He will be on your knees tomorrow. Then you can do whatever you want with him. Fine. No, don't don't make him come in front of me ever again. Please. She tightened the hug as she said that. Jungkook patted her back, for he said, Calm down. He can't harm you anymore. You are safe with me. They stayed like that for a while, sharing their fears and vulnerabilities. The darkness of the underworld couldn't extinguish the warmth that they found in each other's arms. In that moment, Jungkook realized that their love was stronger than the forces that sought to tear them apart, and Vine, for the first time, felt the depth of Jungkook's love in the tenderness of his embrace. As the night deepened, they clung to each other, finding solace in the knowledge that despite the harsh world they inhabited, their love was a force to be reckoned with. And in that moment, they knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, hand in hand, in the darkness and the light. Jungkook held Vine close, and as they sat together in their dimly lit room, he knew that he couldn't erase the painful memories that haunted her. But he was determined to be the solace she needed, to make her laugh, feel good, and safe in his presence. Fine, he began, a soft smile touching his lips. I'm going to tell you a story, a ridiculous one, just to make you smile, okay? Fine looked up at him, her eyes still heavy with the weight of her past. But she nodded, a glimmer of curiosity in her gaze. Jungkook launched into a comical story about a mishap he had had with one of his underlings in the criminal world. He recounted the absurdity of the situation, his animated gestures and exaggerated expressions, causing Vine to giggle despite herself. It was a sound Jungkook hadn't heard often, but it warmed his heart. She laughed on his pathetic story hardly as she continued to pity him. Time seemed to stay still as they talked, laughed, and connected on a level that transcended their roles as husband and wife. Jungkook was determined to be the support that Vine needed, even if he couldn't erase her past or change the darkness of their world. Hours passed, and the weight of Vine's pain began to lift, if only for a little while. As the night deepened, Jungkook realized that their connection was stronger than ever, and the tension that had once existed between them had been replaced by a bond of friendship and understanding. They shared giggles together, and he kept telling her stories until she slept, just like parents who would tell you stories at night until you sleep. He played that part today for her so that she doesn't feel much of their absence. When she slept, he looked at her smiling and put the blanket on her. After switching off the lamps, he began to come towards her to serve a kiss on her forehead. He put his hand on her waist and kept looking at her until he slept in a deep sleep himself, too.